Hello and welcome to Cheating Exposed. Today's story is, my wife's ex-boyfriend co-writer pops back into her life with a new project. I suspect she's cheating. Let me first start by saying that my wife and I are very open, maybe way too open, about our past partners, and all that. She is my second wife. My first wife was big on fidelity, and we broke up over her cheating. My son's mother and I share a son. My wife also has a daughter from a previous marriage. We've been married for 5 years, and our little blended family works well together. As I mentioned earlier, we are perhaps too open about our past relationships. Her first husband was a serial cheater. He was a musician and slept around with women from his gigs. She stumbled onto his emails and found out he was involved with 5 other women, one of whom he had gotten pregnant. Not wanting their child to grow up in a broken home, she tried to save the relationship and reached out to one of her old internet friends for advice. We'll call him Chris. The two had been friends for 7 years but had never met. They were writing partners. In fact, before they lost contact, they had been writing a novel together. She tells me that when she reached out for support, he was very kind. He actually recommended ways to get past infidelity and even what she should discuss with an attorney, just being a good friend in general. Somewhere in all that, they decided to revisit writing their book. According to her, they would casually flirt, but since they lived on opposite sides of the country, they had no way to act on it. Eventually, she decided her marriage was dead. She stopped trying to fix things, checked out, I guess. She and Chris expressed mutual attraction, and by the end of the year, he flew out to meet her. She filed for divorce right after the affair became physical, and Chris moved later that year to be with her. To make a long story short, her daughter, who was only 5 at the time, didn't really take to him. She says he didn't do anything wrong, she just wasn't adjusting well after the divorce and didn't like someone replacing her father. My wife told him they needed to take a break because of this and also because, according to her, he could be a bit crass at times. She had only intended for it to be a short break. But he was apparently so hurt that he had moved all that way only to be turned away 2 months in, so he broke it off entirely. Months later, they reconnected to try and finish their book. They began sleeping together again during this time, but it was just a physical thing. They came close to finishing the book, but then she started dating me, so they stopped sleeping together. She felt weird about having an ex hanging around once she got into a committed relationship. So, by her own admission, she stopped returning his emails as frequently, even though they were all book-related, and stopped working on it on her end. After a few months of this, he grew frustrated and blocked her on everything. Which finally brings us to a month ago. After 4 or 5 years of no contact, he messages her out of the blue. He contracted COVID and nearly died. Chris contacted her because, apparently, in that time apart, he rewrote the book without her contributions, got it published, wrote and published a sequel, and almost left his work unfinished when he was sick. He wanted to make it known that if something happened to him, he wanted the rights of this story turned over to her, as she knows how it will end and helped create it. Fair enough, that actually sounds nice. But then they got to talking. He's apparently writing a comic adaptation and invited her to come on board. He already has a lot of the artwork done, and she was really excited, showing me the designs and explaining who the characters were, their backstories, and what she thinks he got wrong in the visuals. She also read the first book and started telling me about the names he changed, which characters were added or removed, and the plot differences. She seems to be having a lot of fun with it. I knew they wrote together, she's mentioned it before, but I had no idea they had this whole universe built. I can tell this project means a lot to her, something she buried and is now rediscovering. And she seems like she might take him up on his offer. That worries me. Every time they've worked on something together in the past, it led to sex. And their writing includes sexual content. I'm not the jealous type, and I don't want to kill a dream she once loved, but I don't want history repeating itself. I'll admit, I snooped through their conversation. While he seems professional and is only discussing the project, she's the one pressing for personal details. I wouldn't say she's flirting, but she asked if he's seeing anyone. When he said no, that he's too busy and relationships just get in the way, she told him he needs to get back out there. That celibacy isn't a good look on him. We're open about our past sex lives, so I know her ex-husband was awful in bed. And once, when she was drunk, she said about Chris, "Don't let a great fuck convince you it'll be a great relationship." So, how the hell do I proceed? I know she was emotionally broken by her ex-husband, and that's why she cheated. But she did cheat with this man. I've met him. He seems decent. But their history screams trouble. I want to talk to her about my concerns without sounding like a controlling, insecure husband. I want her to have her creative outlet because I've never seen her light up like this before. This book was clearly something she cared about deeply and forced herself to let go of. I want her to have that passion again. But I don't want things between them to escalate again. And they have. 3 times already. My wife's ex-boyfriend re-emerged in her life, asking to work on a mutual writing project that she abandoned years ago, one that is now achieving financial success with. I don't know who this woman is. The level of deception is so deep and deliberate that I can hardly comprehend. I've spent the last 6 years of my life with her. I decided to sit her down and talk about how I felt. I told her I was happy she rediscovered her love for writing. I even encouraged her to explore it as a hobby or career because she's clearly passionate about it. But I also made it clear that I had concerns about him being involved. She agreed. She even said that Chris being around wouldn't be a good idea, that she was worried he might just be using this as an excuse to talk to her again. That conversation should have put everything to rest. And at the time, I believed it did. She wasn't minimizing my feelings or calling me controlling. If anything, we were on the same page. Oh, how wrong I was. Something felt too easy about it. My gut wouldn't let it go. So yesterday morning, while she was in the shower, I took her phone. His number was still there, but their entire conversation was wiped. 3 days ago, it was still there. Red flag. I checked Facebook Messenger. That's when I saw it. She's been talking about her upcoming work trip to Vegas, a 2-day event she said was still happening. But according to the messages, it was cancelled due to COVID weeks ago. So why is she still planning to go? Turns out, she's not going to Vegas. She and Chris are discussing a hotel in a nearby town, planning their stay. They've even been sending each other random people's vacation photos of Vegas, so she'll have pictures to show me if I ask. She's talking about restaurants they can visit, how the full moon will look great on the beach. Oh, and Chris? He's not on the East Coast like he told her. He moved back here. And he has money now. Enough to live comfortably. He even sent her his location on Google Maps. I'm this close to driving my truck through his living room. A month ago, she told me she had to pick up her brother from the airport. That was a lie. She was picking up him. The messages don't go back much further, but they reference conversations from the years they were supposedly no contact. And then I saw it. The message that made my heart start pounding with rage. Yeah, we're just friends. I don't see you in 8 years and I'm inside you 20 minutes off the plane. Best friends maybe. So she's not just planning to sleep with him. She's already been doing it. For months. That trip to her mother's a few weeks ago? Where she stayed overnight. Yeah. That was him. I haven't confronted her yet. But now, every time she smiles at me, it fills me with nothing but pure hate. I want to hold off saying anything until after Christmas. The kids don't deserve to have the holidays ruined by this. But honestly, I don't know if I can make it that long. Because my ability to swallow this bullshit with a smile is about to snap. I'm losing my mind right now. I've been gathering evidence, screenshots, her location history, texts. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with a lawyer. I already spoke with my brother's divorce attorney, and we're making plans. Every move she makes, I'm documenting. Where she says she's going, where she actually goes. The confrontation is set. January 2nd. Right after she meets him at the hotel. I want every piece of evidence lined up. I refuse to let her manipulate the situation. But for now, I'm trying to hold it together for the kids. I don't want Christmas to be a permanent scar for them. The worst of the suicidal thoughts have passed. And to everyone who left messages of support, thank you. You got me through the darkest part of this. I've been leaning on my brother for support, keeping a close eye on their conversations. She started noticing I was acting different, so I fed her a lie, told her I was feeling down because of my aunt's death anniversary. She bought it. She has no idea how much I know. Today, I spent 3 hours parked outside a McDonald's using their Wi-Fi to access her emails. And guess what? They're using Yahoo Messenger. Fucking Yahoo Messenger. And she's not just texting him. She's sending pictures. Tons of them. Her, half naked. Her, posing with the flowers I got her for her birthday. Real cute. Saving all of them. They've been sexting since March. Some select quotes from her. I can't just start talking about the book all the time. I talked about you twice when he and I got together. If I started talking about you and the book a lot now, he's gonna think something is up. You need to shave because that stubble is like knives. Almost had to put chapstick on my chin and under my nose. And from him, this one nearly made me see red. You're getting it right before you leave here. I want him to kiss you after you spent the afternoon swallowing me. My compulsion not to beat this man to death is strong. I won't do it. But the fact that he's being so deliberately cruel, it's taking everything in me not to rip his teeth out and wear them as a necklace. First update, confronted her today. I've never seen someone implode like this. I never want to go through anything like this again. This was the hardest thing I've ever done. Even now, my hands are shaking, my body twitching like a damn tweaker. She left this morning, either for work or to see Chris. Not sure which, and honestly, I don't care anymore. Tried checking her location, but either she turned it off or my phone was acting up. I couldn't serve her today, that's coming later this week, but I had to confront her now before she caught on and started spinning her lies. The second I heard the garage door open, I turned on the camera. She walked in, completely clueless. I told her to sit down, we needed to talk. Deer in the headlights. But she Saturday. What's wrong? She asked. I just stared. Why don't you tell me? She tried to play dumb, but I saw it in her eyes. She knew. What's wrong? She asked again, acting confused. I leaned back. What's really going on with Chris? Instant denial. Nothing, I haven't even talked to him. I didn't push. Not yet. I played it differently. I'm not comfortable with you working with him anymore. I tried to be okay with it, but I just can't. Instant agreement. Too quick. Okay, I understand. Why are you bringing this up now? Why are you acting weird? She asked, nervous. I just shook my head. I got weird vibes from him. I'd rather you didn't talk to him anymore. And she jumped on it. He doesn't mean anything to me. I was just happy about the book. I nodded. He basically stole from you, and you're being way too forgiving. You should sue him. Again, she agreed. Probably thinking she just dodged a bullet. That she'd cut ties with Chris the second she had a chance. But then I dropped this whole thing's been stressing me out. I took next week off work. Thought we could go to Vegas together? Silence. I kept going. I talked to my son's mom. She agreed to keep him that weekend. That's what I was working out the other day when I was on the phone. Her face froze. I casually started talking about how COVID shut down a lot of things, wasn't even sure what was open. And then she cut me off. Actually, it got cancelled today. I stared at her. It got cancelled last month. No, he just told us today. He wasn't sure until now. I know it was cancelled last month. She stiffened. What are you doing? Why are you saying you want to go, then telling me it's cancelled? I don't get what you're doing. It was cancelled last month. What were you going to do if I didn't ask about it? Her breathing changed. You're freaking me out. It was cancelled today. What were you going to do in town where the hotel is? Panic. What are you accusing me of? How long have you and Chris been back together? We haven't done anything. Did he tell you we were? Don't lie to me. I don't want to read off everything he texted. Almost threw up doing it the first time. And then the tears came. I love you, I'm sorry. He's been texting me a lot, saying messed up stuff. I didn't know how to deal with it. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared you'd react like this. I just hoped he'd stop. I let that hang in the air. Then I said, you didn't see him for 8 years. And 20 minutes after he got off the plane, you slept with him. Her face twisted. What plane? What are you reading? He lives on street name. You want to stop this? Just admit it so we can move forward. Why did you tell me he lived on the East Coast? And then the deflection, did he say something to you? He's a liar. That's why we broke up. I told you that. I knew I shouldn't have responded to his messages. It's always drama with him. He started with that "I miss you" stuff again. I was going to tell you. I didn't even blink. He wanted you to come home and kiss me after going down on him. Her face drained of color. What? I'm not cheating on you. If you don't want him around, I'll tell him to get lost. But honey, I'm not cheating. Did he tell you I was? He's lying. Stop it. I saw the messages. Your emails. Your texts. You're cheating on me, and I want you out of this house today. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I stood up. Get your stuff. Go to your parents. I have copies of everything. I don't want to show them what you two say to each other, but if you keep lying to my face, I will. We're done. Go pack your things. She tried even in the face of all that to play stupid and lie, but finally, tired of it, I broke out my copies of their texts and handed them to her. She looked at them for 2 seconds and then broke down crying hard. Like, I've never seen her this devastated by anything. I even felt bad for her for a little while. She said she was sorry that it got out of hand, and she wanted to put the brakes on it, but he had gotten possessive and was threatening to expose her if she ended it with him. I told her that none of that was in their texts and that she's still lying to me. She was going to go off and spend the weekend with him. She then told me it's done between them and she'll make him go away. She won't ever talk to him again. I told her I don't care what she does, but I've been talking to a lawyer and the divorce papers will be ready soon. At this point, she explodes and repeats, "You've been talking to a lawyer," like 4 or 5 times, and honestly, I was ready to call the cops because she's closing in on me and really screaming now. I tell her to calm down, that I have a camera going. She then continues to break down and not resemble anyone I've ever met before. Kept saying stuff like, "You just planned all this out." Smiling to my face, just planning this all out. Every time she did, I responded with the same, "Well, look at what you've been planning," and smiling to my face while you're out doing sex. I asked her why she'd do this to us, and at first, she couldn't give me a straight answer. She tried to tell me it was meaningless, so I responded with, "Oh, so you ruined us for no reason then?" That's great. After a bit, she sort of got quieter, and I don't know if she was being honest or just trying to hurt me, but apparently, she really messed up with him in her eyes. She called him her soulmate, and I nearly started breaking stuff. I asked her why she just didn't ditch me for him in the beginning. I would have understood then, and she said she just needed to get away from him because she knew how bad she'd look to her family if she brought him back around. Apparently, they didn't like him either. She also said that she could never and can never actually be with him because her ex and daughter would fight her on this. So, going back to him legitimately was never an option. She then said she was sorry and seemed to be in disbelief with how final I was with everything. She told me how much of a mistake it was, how much she would change and do whatever I wanted her to just to fix the situation. I told her no. She then told me we weren't getting a divorce because she can make amends for this. I told her there was nothing she could do to earn my forgiveness. I will not forgive this, ever. Somehow, she had the gall to be shocked by this. I told her then that I opened an account in another bank and moved half from the joint account into it this morning, and that the rest is hers. She can either get it herself, or I can get it for her, but the account is getting closed. She just nodded along and said we'd probably both have to go to the bank together to close it. 3-month progression update. I've mostly gone no contact with my STBX. I initially tried communicating with her only through my lawyer if we had a real reason to talk, but that made me feel like a child avoiding confrontation. Even though that wasn't the case, I decided to speak with her myself a few times. If you've been following the lengthy comment streams from my previous posts, you already know what was discussed, but I'll write everything here as if it's the first time I'm sharing it. At first, my STBX was all over the place when talking about Chris. 1 minute, he was her soulmate and the one that got away. The next, he was a predator who wouldn't leave her alone. Our family and friends all know the truth now, and most have taken my side. Given the details I shared in my lengthy FB post, there was little room to side with her anyway. She's since moved in with her parents for the time being, while I've stayed in my home. I acquired it years before I even met her, so there's no issue regarding ownership in the divorce. Strangely enough, Chris, the AP, decided to write me this huge harangue of a letter. For what reason, God only knows. From the way it was written, I got the impression she must have dumped him in anger shortly after I kicked her out. The letter was full of nonsense like, "We were repairing our relationship when you stole her from me. I've loved her for X amount of years, so don't post stuff online about how I'm a cheat." Reading it made me see red. I wanted to do the man some serious physical harm, but once again, I saw reason. Life has been pretty lonely in this house since she and my stepdaughter moved out. Her room is still empty, and I have to keep the door closed because seeing it like that always hurts me. I can't bring myself to do anything with it yet. She has a father, a good dad, and because of him, I still see her once during the week. We go on bike rides or grab something to eat together. I once asked her if she felt comfortable eating at my house, and the poor thing just started crying. She loves her grandparents but doesn't like living with them, so she's been spending more time with her father. Her dad has invited me over a couple of times for a beer, and we've had a few conversations about our mutual ex and Chris. I think I mentioned this in the comment on my last post, but he knew the entire time she was cheating on him. I see my son and his mother a lot more now. One of my weekday custody days lines up with their schedule, so I stop in for dinner. I've also been keeping him an extra day on my weekends, and she usually joins us for dinner on Friday nights. I've asked my son if he wants to talk about how he feels about my upcoming divorce. He won't say much, but I know he's hurting. The first couple of times I brought it up, he just stared off into the distance and said, "I don't even want to think about her." He told me he loved her and never expected her of all people to do this to him. That really hit me. We always think of an affair as something done to us, like a personal betrayal, but hearing what she did to me from him hurt more than anything she could have ever done to me. I've discussed therapy with him and his mom, but he insists he's fine. He says if it ever gets too much, he'll talk to us. He's a mature kid, and I trust his judgment. He's usually pretty upfront about how he's feeling. For the first time, he and I privately discuss my divorce from his mother and what led to it. At first, I didn't want to. I know he's furious about adultery right now, and he has a great relationship with his mom. But he kept asking, so I chose polite honesty. I told him she hurt me just as much, but what she did was just a terrible choice. I also told him I'm not upset about it anymore, even though it took a while to get to that point. Speaking of my son's mother, she's had my back through all of this. She's the main reason I started having dinner with them once a week and keeping my son longer. She insists that I'll be better off not constantly being alone in that house. A lot of people have suggested that she and I reunite. If I ever came to that decision, I'd want to go through some therapy first, maybe even couples therapy if she was open to it. We did briefly talk about our own divorce and the infidelity that caused it. I've moved past it, and it doesn't really affect me anymore, but she still talks about it like she just got caught. I've told her before that I forgive her, but this time I also said that thinking back on how she described the situation, it's likely she was taken advantage of. She had too much to drink, and some creep preyed on that. He wasn't someone she knew well, just a guy she'd seen around her workplace a few times. If I remember correctly, he either didn't work in her area or was from a separate location. In any case, she literally never saw him again after that. It's still a tough thing to think about. Even though it doesn't bother me day to day, the fact remains, I was really happy with my life before she broke the bad news to me. When my relationship with the STBX started, it kind of helped smooth things over. But once again, right when I was feeling great about life, infidelity came and wrecked it. It honestly makes me really reluctant to even consider another relationship if this is where all my time and effort keeps leading. That said, I'm taking a trip to Disney World this July to try and clear my head. Originally, it was supposed to be just me, my son, and his mother, but I managed to talk the STBX into letting my stepdaughter come along too. I didn't want her to feel excluded. She'll probably just use the free time to hook up with her next unfortunate soul, but that's not my problem anymore. Should be divorced by July, and I cannot wait. In short, out of the blue one day, my wife of 5 years claimed an ex-boyfriend she used to write with suddenly appeared again, wanting to know if she could work on an old mutual project together. Well, as you might have guessed, she was having an affair that went back for quite a long time. Their dirty emails to each other disgusted me, as they were extremely, almost intentionally, hurtful. It wasn't bad enough for her to cheat on me, but he said he wanted her to go home and greet me filled with him, so to speak. I held my shit together for the kids for Christmas. She has a daughter, and I have a son. I confronted her, threw her out, and went as no contact as I possibly could. Her AP, Chris, sent me a few messages after the fact, claiming that I have no reason to be upset because, in his eyes, I stole her from him. He had been holding this one-sided grudge for the last 5 years and talked as if we had been enemies for quite some time. In short, my STBX's family never approved of him, so she dumped him. She went on to claim they were soulmates, and that's why she couldn't turn him away. Well, I've been keeping my health, working out, and continuing to work from home, but that'll be over soon. I've kept contact with my stepdaughter through her grandparents and her biological father, whom she also cheated on with this man, though he's cheated on my STBX multiple times. He's an alright guy to have a beer with, and for all his faults, he seems like a good dad. I see her twice a week now, never overnight, and even still, I've kept her former room empty because it's too depressing to me to consider doing anything else with it. She's been my princess, and she's always excited when she comes to visit or when I show up to take her to dinner or for bike rides. After a bit, my son has decided that he thinks he could benefit from therapy and has been seeing a doctor. His mother, my first wife, and I have been keeping a close eye on him, as he was pretty close to his stepmother. She's tried to contact him and apologize, but he doesn't want to speak to her. He began getting impulsive and had bouts of angry outbursts unrelated to her, and it was then I asked him if he thought he might do well with therapy. He told me how betrayed he felt by what she'd done, that he hated her, he missed his stepsister, and he wanted everything to just be erased. I really felt for him. I don't think we've talked heart to heart or hugged one another in our entire lives more than we have in the past few months. His mother has really been at my side through most of this, and we've gotten a lot closer too. At first, she was inviting me over for dinner a couple of days a week because she thought it was unhealthy for me to spend so much time alone in an empty house. I'm around steadily more now, and many nights a week, we eat dinner like a family. My folks and her folks have both taken notice of this, and they have both been asking us whether or not, seeing as things are getting on so well, if we'd consider reconciling. We said we're both happy with things as they are, but knowing everyone is talking about us makes it difficult for us not to talk about it ourselves. Minus the physical affection, we're basically acting really similar toward one another like we did when we were married, which is comforting and warm, but that's soon going to get to a place where it needs a good long talk. All that's been said thus far is that nothing is going to be attempted or even discussed until our son's life has normalized. These changes hurt him. As for my STBX and how things are going on that front, from what I've learned, she's just bought herself a condo and is moving on with her life. Her mother and father are deeply ashamed of what she's done, and in their words, my stepdaughter is frequently back-talking her mom. I'd like to report to you all that she's gravely suffering or is a weeping mess, but nope, STBX seems like she's off to go ruin another guy's life. I did, however, crossed paths with Chris at a grocery store last month. He turned pale white, and I pointed him out to my brother, which I shouldn't have done. He started following him around and shouting variations of "freaking Prince Charming over here. Fat loser's gonna eat both those Red Barons tonight before he starts texting your wife, guys." I forced us to leave and will be shopping elsewhere, though I did get a good laugh out of it. Final update. It's been a year since D-Day. There's been kidnapping, assault, and hospitalization since my last post. This week a year ago, I was sitting around trying to process my ex-wife telling me about her ex, Chris, approaching her with aspirations of writing a book based on their previous work together. It was an obvious front to further their ongoing affair, and I was so stupid not to see it. Anyhow, I confronted her and threw her out, and she went to live with her parents, taking her stepdaughter with her. I maintained contact with my stepdaughter for quite some time and still do make time for her, but she's had it worse than anyone. I guess I'll give an update on that first. My stepdaughter was essentially kidnapped by her biological father sometime after my last update. I've said it before, but her father is not from my country and has citizenship from the country he came from. Every couple of years, he would take his daughter to his country to see his family, but this time, he refused to send her back home. His given reason was that our mutual ex-wife was poison and he wanted his daughter away from her. In the end, he shot himself in the foot on that front because, 2 months later, he caved to pressure from his own family and sent her back. He is not returning because he'll most likely be arrested if he comes back to the States, so he removed himself as a good influence in her life and left her in the hands of someone we both consider poison. Things did not get better from there on my ex's side of things. Shortly after the divorce was finalized, but before her ex-husband ran off with the child, she had begun dating a new man. I was unaware of this until my former in-laws contacted me to say that she'd been hospitalized. She and Chris, her affair partner, had, as many guessed, begun sleeping together again. From what my former MIL told me, she broke it off with him again to pursue a new man. Chris took her to a Motel 6, where he sprung it on her that he was sick of being treated how he was treated. When she tried to walk back to her car, he snapped, picked her up over his head, and slammed her down on the concrete parking lot. He attacked and drove off a Good Samaritan before stomping on one of her hands and then choking her so hard she had dark purple bruises and a fractured vertebra in her neck. Thankfully, he's behind bars now and is facing a slew of assault charges and perhaps even attempted murder, but I've not followed up on the legal aspects of any of it. She is in physical therapy and in recovery, as she was also concussed in the assault and is pretty hazy a lot of the time. No matter what she did to me, seeing her in this condition breaks my heart. My stepdaughter spends a lot of time with me these days as I am trying to do what I can to help the situation. She is understandably not in the best spirits, but spending time with my son, my son's mother, and me at least gives her a solid place to stand. That just leaves my first wife, my son's mother. A lot of people have expressed a desire to see us reconcile, and in many ways, we have. Neither of us is pushing the other back into a relationship, but we have discussed our past, the infidelity that separated us, and the fact that she has been forgiven by me. We aren't officially back together, but it isn't uncommon for us to spend the night at each other's place. As we speak, it's been 5 days since we've slept in different houses. We sleep separately, as I'm sure this all confuses my son, but we've been intimate regularly for over a month now. It's going nice and easy. Nobody is pushing for anything more than what we have, and for the moment, it's working out. I could go on for many more paragraphs, but I think I'll wrap up this update and answer questions as they come. Well, folks, that's all. Thank you all for listening. Please like, comment, and share the video if you enjoyed it. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you will be notified when we upload the next video. Take care.